Get going as we are here for an extended edition of Wild, as we like to call it, because of the all-important Game 3 of the NLDS that's coming our way in just a matter of hours. 4:08, the first pitch down in Chicago. So this being the Wisconsin Live Desk, we're going to show you a lot more shots of Chicago than we normally do on this programming on a regular midweek afternoon here. Gorgeous weather down there in the Windy City today as we give you a live look at the skyline. You can see the formerly Sears, now Willis Tower, standing prominently there, and all those puffy clouds and sunshine that should grace the fans and the players in the friendly confines of Wrigley Field down there today as we give you a live look from a little closer to where the action will take place now on the north side of Chicago. Again, 4:08, that first pitch between the Brewers and the Cubs today as you give you a live look there at the corner of Clark and Addison with the Wrigley marquee ready for the gates to open, still a little ways away. We have all kinds of Brewers coverage coming for you over the next couple hours leading up to that first pitch today down in Chicago. The Brewers have the possibility of sweeping their rivals right out of the National League Division Series. We shall see after those two just electric home games for the Brewers at American Family Field, where we also have a camera, of course, today. The roof open as they get the grass ready for what they hope will be the continuation of October baseball. No matter what, it would come back for at least a Game 5, but the Brewers, of course, hoping they can take care of the series and move on to the NLCS in 3 games or 4, if they can do that today with a sweep or tomorrow with a win in what would be Game 4. You can see a bit breezy out there as well. I found this interesting this morning when we were chatting through some of the coverage that I've been to a number of Cubs games. I actually married into a Cubs family. Please don't get mad at me. I'm an impartial observer here covering the series for you from Milwaukee. But having gone to so many games at that historic ballpark, I never realized they fly the flag of the state wherever the team is coming from. So you'll notice there in front of the marquee, the Brewers flag. They usually have the opposing team's flag outside of the ballpark along with the Cubs. But then if you look to the upper part of your screen there to the right of the marquee, that's the Wisconsin flag flying prominently there in Chicago, Illinois. So one of the ways that they welcome the fans. We'll see what the Brewers contingent looks like down there. We know it was a raucous atmosphere inside American Family Field, and the Cubs fans didn't have much to cheer for those road games for Chicago. Now we'll see how many of the Brewers faithful were able to get tickets, get their way inside the ballpark today. As I mentioned, extended coverage for you throughout the day. We are supposed to have press conferences, pregame press conferences, media appearances with a couple of players and manager Pat Murphy that should happen during our window of the Wisconsin Live Desk today. So we'll try to bring you those as they happen over the next few hours and get all the excitement leading up to Game 3. And then, of course, we have this special edition of the Wisconsin Live Desk starting at 2:30 today. So I'm here with you for the first couple hours of Wild today, and then Kim Murphy, Ben Handelman will handle that special pregame edition of the Wisconsin Live Desk, along with our reporters down in Wrigley for the game today. Ted Perry is headed down there. Lily Zhao got there yesterday for the series of workouts the Brewers had at Wrigley Field ahead of Game 3. Quinn Priester on the mound. We'll certainly mention that at some point. All the excitement around the hometown kid, grew up rooting for the Cubs, has a chance to sweep them out of the playoffs with a strong performance today. So just some of the storylines, a lot more to come. This is the story of the day for us here in Milwaukee, even though the action is happening down there in Chicago. Of course, we're keeping an eye on a number of other things for you as well. This is day 8 now of the government shutdown as these talks, or lack thereof, enter a second week since the shutdown went into effect last week. There is a series of votes, a series of hearings, and media availability scheduled today for members of the U.S. House and Senate in Washington, D.C. Maybe we'll try to dip into a few of those for you as well, while much of the talk and the blame game continues in Washington on who is at fault here. And then, of course, the other big story in Chicago, they have to cover the serious story of the possibility of Texas National Guard troops being used by the federal government in Chicago, and that is being met with opposition from the mayor of Chicago, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and more, who have filed a lawsuit that's being handled, or will be handled tomorrow, on the possible use of those National Guard troops in Chicago, as has been the case in other cities around the U.S. All right, so As we can see, a lot to get to. The fun stuff with the game today, some of the serious news of the day. We have a whole lot coming for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk over the next 2 hours. But we want to start with a very special almost debut of something coming to the Milwaukee art scene. And for that, I will bring in our first guest here on the Wisconsin Live Desk today. Great to have you here with us. We are joined right now by Melissa Vartanian-Michaelian. I hope I pronounced that right. The Milwaukee Reps Managing Director. How did I do with the last name?
You did great.
Okay, perfect. I always feel the pressure on that, especially with Deffenbaugh, my last name, got to get it right. This is a very exciting week for you guys that has been months, years in the coming. Tell our viewers here on the Wisconsin Live Desk what is about to be unveiled later this week.
Well, we're very excited about phase one of the Associated Bank Theater Center opening up this weekend. We're going to be doing our grand opening ribbon cutting on Saturday, October 11th. And at that point in time, phase one includes the Shakota Powerhouse Theater, the Hertzfeld Education and Engagement Center, as well as all 3 levels of our shared lobby space, the Sandra and William Hack Galleria. And we're just so excited to have everybody come in here, see the space that we've been working on for several years to bring to fruition for this community.
I know this has been so long in the coming. Tell us first and foremost why this mattered so much to the Milwaukee Rep. It's obviously a big amount of money. You guys had to fundraise and get a lot of donations. Why was there the need for this for such an institution here in the city?
Yeah, our facility was aging. Not just that, the technology that we had inside this facility was also aging. And it was prohibiting us from being able to really produce the kind of art that we feel like Milwaukee deserves. There was also some things that were prohibiting us from being able to move to a national playing field like we have wanted to do for a while, including being an incubator for theater that could potentially move to Broadway and beyond. Our space was not necessarily conducive with other theaters in the country. So a lot of the big change that we've done for the Shakota Powerhouse Theater includes now not just having a thrust stage that we've had previously, but also being able to flip back and forth between that and a proscenium stage, which is more of a straight line stage where audiences may have seen shows in other theaters that way before. Also creating a fly space so that things could fly in and out, scenery, lighting, other elements, masking, and then just upgrading the technology. Additionally, we were not set up to really serve the patrons that had accessibility needs in our theater. When this building was built or renovated into what it was previously in 1987, it was the folks that worked on this theater were incredibly thoughtful about how they would accommodate folks with accessibilities, but that was before ADA. So there was a lot of things that were grandfathered into the way that we functioned that were not really conducive to how people need to use the space now, which left folks that had accessibility needs or were using a wheelchair forced to sit in the back of the house previously. Now they'll have access to the first floor, to the front row seating with our new accessible entrance into the Shakota Powerhouse Theater. And then another bit that I will talk about is our Hertzfeld Education and Engagement Center. We have been serving students out in our community. We serve about roughly 20,000 students a year. And we've really struggled with being able to bring them on site to our location other than to see the shows. So a lot of the work that we're doing is going out into the classrooms and into the community, which we will still continue to do. But we wanted to have space here on site where we could hold those classes, hold those community events, and create our School of Theater and allow people into our space and be able to utilize that here. And this new Hertzfeld Education and Engagement Center is going to allow that.
All of that is fascinating. So many follow-up questions I'm already thinking of here, and we can get into some of that as well. But you sent us such wonderful photos, some of the renderings that you have. So let me show those right now to some of our viewers. And Melissa, tell me, are you able to see these as they pop up on the screen here? Or otherwise I'll describe. Okay, perfect. So this is what a lot of people recognize, right? The outside of the Milwaukee Rep, right there along the Milwaukee River. The signage, beautiful, of course. But then the entrance, let's start there, and then we'll get into some of that theater space. This is just beautiful and such such a interesting pairing of modern design with the historic brick building as well. Tell us about the design behind this and what you think this will be like as the new welcome spot for the Milwaukee Rep.
Yeah, I think, well, first off, EUA was our architect firm, and they did a stunning design for this whole facility. So I'm really excited for the community to see this. But they talked us through this process as they were doing it, but this element of sleek, stunning, modern inside, and sort of sandwiched between two very historic buildings was a way that they felt could create something that was really wonderful to look at, beautifully designed, for us to stare at from the front. You've got the front picture there now, and highlight the new design inside and letting people see in, but also it not overshadowing the two historic buildings on either side of it, being our theater, Milwaukee Repertory Theater, and the Oneida Street Power Station that we are housed in, and then also the PAPS, which is right next door. Um, so we did a lot of work, just a lot of the work is on the interior, but that exterior front shot with that lobby that really showcases what we're going to see inside. We captured some space that was right next to our building as well, in between what you're seeing there, that glass structure and our historic building. We had a little patio there that was exterior, and now you can see in this shot here that that we've captured that space next to it which actually allowed us to enlarge our lobby space and create more room for people to move about, and allowed us to not have to just walk through what we had previously was these glass tubes kind of that everyone walked through to get from the lobby into the historic structure. Now it's all together. And you can literally, we've enclosed in a huge portion of that historic wall. And now parts and pieces of that wall that were always on the exterior, never seen or touched before, you can literally put your hands on when you're in the building, walking up the grand staircase, or walking through to the entrances of the Powerhouse Theater.
That is so cool. And as someone who has enjoyed a few different shows there over the years, yeah, especially during the winter, right? It was kind of a wind tunnel to get inside and
Yes.
make your way in. So that looks like a wonderful new way for folks to enter. All right, since you chatted a little bit about the main stage, let's get to that photo that you guys sent us now. Beautiful space, and I imagine this kind of speaks to a little bit of what you were saying, both the accessibility for guests and for patrons, but then we can get to the stage too. So describe the space for the guests first and foremost, the seating that we'll see, because it's a similar arrangement, but I'm sure lots of differences that I'm not noticing.
What we did here, what you're seeing in this picture is what we're calling the proscenium setup. So in the proscenium setup, you see that sort of lower level, there's kind of a little semicircle there. We've added in seating in that arrangement. So when we're in this setup, we have an additional amount of seats in there that takes our count from 568 to 671.
Wow.
So this will allow us to seat more people in. And when we are in the thrust configuration, we basically take out those seats that are in that sort of half moon semicircle down by the stage, and we fill that with platforming that extends out the stage floor in that semicircle. What you're also seeing when you see those wood walls and some of that lighting that's in that the far back of the picture, that is where we used to have sections 1 and 6 that wrapped around right up to the proscenium walls. And those areas were the worst sight lines for anyone that was sitting in those seats. They'd sit in those seats. They could see the actors close if they were on the thrust stage. But if they went upstage of that proscenium line, you couldn't see anything. So what we did was EUA worked with Fisher Dax Associates, which were our theatrical consultants, and with Hunsinger Construction, our general contractor. And we reconfigured, redesigned, reconceived what the seating arrangement is. So it looks similar to what it was, but it's a reshaped seating bowl that allows every seat in the house to be a good seat. So we eliminated those far side sections. We created lighting galleries there. And then we concentrated on a few less seats than what we previously had, but also wider seats, more comfortable seats. and just a really great view for everyone.
I love that idea too of being flexible with the space, right? No matter what the playwright or musician is necessarily coming up with, you kind of have either that ability to have a stage that fits whatever story they're trying to tell there as well. I believe you can correct me. This is a picture of that education element and center that you were describing as well. Is this where hopefully you can bring in some of those students for the different sessions and classes?
Yes, so this is the Hurstville Education Engagement Center. This space, so we have this lower level here that you're seeing that's really flexible. So we can have classes in there, we could host events in here, we could have our dinner dialogue series that we do with our community engagement department. All of that can happen here on the lower level. We can also do performances in this space, set up seating in here, set up a stage. And then up above where you see sort of that half wall, that second level and the stairs going up and the window that looks down, that's the classrooms. We have 2 classrooms up above. They can open up into one large classroom, and then there's a divider wall that can split them. So we can be having multiple things happening in this center all at the same time. This room previously used to be our carpentry shop, and so there was also historic elements in this room as well. So what you're also seeing there is some of the enamel brick that was part of the original powerhouse, and all of that was hidden behind racks of lumber for the last 40 years. And now we've taken that down and we've had that brick cleaned, restored, and now it's sort of a showcase piece also for folks when they're in the space.
Yeah, that's a really cool design feature in there as well. A few of the other pictures I think are about the experience of going to the theater as well, which you'll have for your guests. So I'll throw them up. I think there's 3 of them, and you can kind of comment as we go here. First and foremost, this is sort of what you were describing, right? The grand entrance that's now inside that first lobby.
Yeah, so this right here is, we have a staircase that goes between what formerly were bridges. So those kind of glass tunnels that I was talking to you about before that separated our lobby from our actual theater. Now it's all inside. And what we did was we placed a staircase in between the entrances into the theater. So kind of wrap your way all the way up from the main level, from the ground floor up to the 3rd floor. And there's also additionally an elevator that we have put into this space as well. So formerly our patrons would come in, they would come into the River Center, maybe they parked in the parking garage, but they would have to go up the elevators that were in the River Center, kind of step out of our building if they needed to transfer between floors. Now they can do all of that inside of our building. They can still enter through the old doors if they prefer. We're going to encourage everybody, at least on their first visit, to try and come in through our new grand entrance doors on the 1st floor that are right next to our ticket office.
Very cool. If you're just joining us on the Wisconsin Live Desk, by the way, we're speaking with Melissa Vartanian-Michaelian, the managing director for the Milwaukee Rep, which is ready to unveil their brand new glistening Associated Bank Theater Center. This weekend will be the special ceremony, the ribbon cutting, that we'll get to some details of as well. But we want to get back to some of the design features inside. I will say this, the lounges look fantastic as well, as we're seeing a shot of what you can kind of go and enjoy either before or after or during intermission of a show, right?
Yeah, so the Lubar Lounge is our donor lounge, and previously we had a donor lounge. It was very small, almost postage stamp size, didn't fit a lot of people in it, and didn't really have a lot of amenities. We feel pretty strongly that our donors are the ones that helped us create this building. This building has had some public funding from the state, from Governor Evers through a grant, as well as some historic tax credits. But beyond that, everything has been privately funded by our donors. And we want to make sure that we can celebrate them as well through this process. So we wanted to create a space where they can come during the show, at intermission, pre-show, post-show, and be able to have access to a lounge that they can use. We can also use this space outside of shows for rentals, for community events, for a plethora of different things. But it's really going to be a nice feature piece. And this is when you're looking at the exterior shot of the building and you see that glass that's sort of surrounding that cube, that is the above the Milwaukee Rep lettering there, that's the Lubar Lounge.
Wow,
so below that is the 2nd floor lobby space that that patrons can actually sit in, and there's lounge furniture there as well, so that anyone can access. Yep, there you go. You brought that picture up. So
This is a nice little
this is
dance
a
we're doing here.
yeah, I just say it. I say it and it happens. Um, but this is the second floor in the We Energies Powerhouse Theater foyer, where folks can actually get their cocktail, get their coffee at the bar, and then go and have a space to sit. Previously, there wasn't a lot of seating, and we heard our patrons letting us know that that was something that was important to them. We wanted to make sure that there was a lot of opportunity for them to sit, relax, talk with each other, and feel like they didn't have to stand the whole time while they're in the lobby space.
The all-important question too, access to the bathroom still pretty good for a quick run during intermission? You're trying to get back to your seats?
Yes, access. So on the second floor level, we've actually moved those restrooms closer to the entrance doors of the theater. They're closer to the doors. You'll
Gotcha,
be able to get to
gotcha.
them. And then there's a lot of restrooms throughout. On the third floor level, they're still sort of in that same area where they were previously. But there's also additional restrooms on the first floor that are hooked to our Education and Engagement Center and accessible to everyone throughout.
I'm sure for all of the team over there at the Milwaukee Rep, there's been so much excitement, so much work to get to this point. Now this weekend, you finally get to show it all off to the public. Tell us about the event that you have planned on October 11th, this Saturday, because there's a rather big name coming to help get this
Yeah.
started.
Yep. So we have a two-part event going on. The first part is that we're doing our ribbon cutting at 11 a.m. on Wells Street, right outside the building, and anyone in the community is welcome to come and attend that. They'll be able to hear a few speeches and see the ribbon cutting happen. And then we're gonna kick off that evening with a big concert, and that has Bernadette Peters joining us
Wow.
for a concert that evening.
Very nice. And she'll be singing a series of songs, I imagine, throughout.
Yes.
Any idea
Yeah.
what the lineup is? Some favorites in there, I'm sure.
No, I don't have the lineup, so it's going to be a story of itself, I'm sure.
A surprise for all of us. And then maybe we can get into the season to come. Of course, you want to have the productions showing off this beautiful new space. As you've been very kind with the time here, Melissa, it starts off with something that certainly caught my attention. It's A Wonderful Life, a live radio play. So a lot of people, of course, getting ready for the holidays. That's a favorite movie for so many. Tell us about this version of it, a live radio play. What does that mean?
Oh, well, I'm gonna encourage folks to just, fly with us and come and see these shows, right? So, It's a Wonderful Life is, it's not the traditional way you're used to seeing it. You're gonna kind of see it, have a little fun with it in a live radio play version, the way that we used to kind of hear things on the radio back
Cool.
in the olden days. And that's in the Stackner Cabaret. We start previews for that October 31st, and it runs through December 21st. And then we
Probably
also
the biggest show right after that, yeah, as we just kind of look ahead, Come From Away, which the Broadway tour came through Milwaukee, I think, years ago at the time. It's a fascinating show. I didn't get to see it, so I'm actually very excited that it's coming back here. Tell us about the premise of this and why you think this musical has stuck so much over the years now.
Yes. Well, first off, the really exciting thing about this show is that we get to produce it ourselves here. So it's been on tour. It hasn't been, the rights haven't been publicly available to perform while it's been on tour. And now, I know that there's multiple theaters around the country that are doing it, but it's going to allow the directors from those different theaters, and of course our artistic director, Mark Clements, to be able to put their own little directorial vision on it and present it in a way that might be a little, obviously honoring the text that's there, but, presenting it with their own direction and our own production of it. So we're really excited about that. It's talking about a really amazing story about humanity, and how people came together following the days after 9/11, when our flights were being grounded so that we could get everybody out of the air, so we could see what was going on, and they could identify if there were any additional threats. And there were some flights that were grounded, and one went to Gander, and well, many of them went to Gander, and Gander was a small little town in Newfoundland, and they were not prepared for all of this incoming air traffic as well as all of these people. And nor did they imagine that they were going to be there and stuck there for a few days. So this is a story about a town that came together to really welcome in people and to work through all the emotions that everyone was feeling. There was, there's a lot that those that were on the flights were feeling, as well as those in the town, and just there was a lot of fear that was going on in the world at that time, and just the way that people come together and help each other out and celebrate that human side of the story.
Yeah, I remember the time it first came through. It was like, okay, the premise, again, kind of go with us on this, but clearly it's an amazing show. I think it won the Tony when it first debuted on Broadway. We're running short on time. There's been so much to get to here, Melissa, but give me maybe one other show to be on the lookout for the rest of the season for you guys, because there's some big names from August Wilson,
Yeah.
Agatha Christie. There's so much.
There's so many. Yeah, well, there's so many. Okay, I will just, I'm going to put in a plug that our 50th anniversary production of A Christmas Carol is happening this year. Of course, you've just named a few more, but then additionally, what we're opening right now is phase 1 of our project. Phase 2 includes the renovation of the studio theater, which is now the Harrow Frankie Studio. And when that studio theater opens up in February 10th, we will be doing McNeil, which is Ayad Akhtar's new play. And we're very excited to be sharing that with Milwaukee as well. So there's a lot in our season. Please visit our website, www.milwaukeerep.com. Buy your tickets and come join us for this really exciting season.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, that is a Milwaukee playwright who has gone on to national acclaim, a Pulitzer Prize, and still obviously very connected to his hometown there. Melissa, thank you so much. This has been so much fun doing this with you, our kind of theater half hour here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Congrats. We'll put up the pictures in the new space again, because it is this Saturday. As you mentioned, folks can join you. Anyone can show up along Wells Street there for the ribbon cutting, and then tickets still available to see the show with Bernadette Peters inside, or what's the status of those right now?
Yeah, I think we are actually sold out for
Fair
that
enough.
one.
Hey, that's good news for you guys to be expected after all this excitement. Obviously, a long season to come with a lot of chances for folks to go check out the new space. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that is the managing director of the Milwaukee Rep joining us here ahead of a very exciting weekend for that wonderful local theater group here in Milwaukee. A lot of fun. Can you tell I was a theater kid back in high school? Did some of that before switching performance styles, I guess, so to speak, to television and now digital broadcasting. All right, we're going to get back to all of the fun still to come. Actually, you know what? We just keep it rolling here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Let's take you down to Chicago, where a pair of Milwaukee Brewers just stepped to the podium inside of Wrigley Field. We have Jake Bowers and Brandon Lockridge speaking ahead of a pivotal Game 3 today. Let's hear what Jake and Brandon have to say about the matchup.
That pinch hit's coming at some point, so I think by like the 4th or 5th inning, I'm probably sitting down on the bench by myself, trying to stay locked in, but at the same time trying to be as excited as possible and cheering on the guys. So it's definitely a fine line, but excited to get out there tonight for sure.
Yeah, I think most of my big league experience has been a bench role like this so far. So obviously right now it's a little bit different situation. You know, leverage situations happen sooner in the game now. So, you know, they've done a good job of communicating, telling me to be ready early on. So, you know, I'm as mentally exhausted with these games so far as I am, you know, if I played a game during the regular season. So it's definitely just a different, you know, you're getting locked in at a different time now as opposed to regular season, but this is, you know, I'm excited for the opportunity to start tonight.
Kurt, second row on the left.
So if you are starting tonight, how does that change the nerves or the role or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I got the lineup last night. You know, normally, you know, you wake up when you're playing off the bench, you know, you wake up and, you know, the nerves kind of settle in, but they settled in a little sooner last night when I found out I was starting, so.
JR, second row in the middle.
Jake, you kind of said earlier this year that the home run you hit in Game 3 last year, you felt like could be a springboard toward, you know, just an improved new season. And I wonder how you feel this playoffs relative to last one now that you have that on your resume, if it has changed you as a hitter and if you feel differently going into the playoffs this time around.
Yeah, I definitely feel a little different. I think last year there was a lot of doubt if, you know, you could come through on a big stage, and then you do. And so you turn that doubt into Nerves, yeah, but also excitement. Looking forward to the opportunity, and it becomes less what if it doesn't happen and more how can I help and what if it does happen. So I think that's kind of the switch for me throughout the entire season. And then so when you get into the postseason, obviously it's heightened, but it's essentially the same thing.
A few more for these guys. Go back to Kurt.
Brandon, Murph calls you Breckenridge. Have you been to Breckenridge, Colorado?
I have actually. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I'm assuming the ridge at the end might have been the first thing that came to his mind at the time. But when he says it, I look now, so that's good.
Go to the second row on the right side here.
Each game they've scored, you guys have come right back and scored yourselves. It's one thing to do that in the regular season. What has allowed the team to just continue to have that mindset to bounce back right away for either of you?
I think 162 games of that being the mentality. I think the way we played in the regular season was a good chance to put that into practice and to really solidify that that's going to be our identity, and we're going to grind out at bats regardless of what the score is. And so when you have 6-7 months of that being the standard, nothing changes when the calendar flips to October.
We have a couple on the right side here. Second row and then the third row.
Hi, to both of you. Are you actively looking at what's going on the other series, to see potential rivals? And if you do, which player do you think is the one that is making the most noise the most noise in this October?
I mean, I definitely been watching the other games. I love watching good baseball games. So being that I was with the Yankees, I came up with them. I've know quite a few of those guys over there, so I've been watching that game. I've obviously seen the impact Vlad's made on the Blue Jays as well. So I would definitely say he's had a pretty impressive postseason.
Yeah. No, I mean, the games are always on in the clubhouse, so definitely watching. My wife is a baseball fan, so I get home from our games. She's got the games on the TV, so we end up watching the rest of them. And yeah, I mean, like Locke said, what Vlad's doing right now has been it's been fun to watch.
Stay in the second row on the right.
Jake, you had a really strong finish to the regular season, and you made a lot more contact, especially in that last month of September. Does something like that influence how you feel going into the playoffs or what you think you're capable of, or is it good or bad, you just kind of go clean slate once you get to this point?
No, I mean, I think having a little bit of a stretch there where I was playing well consistently definitely helps the mindset going in. I hear Murph talk a lot about meeting the game halfway, and I think that's something that I really started to recognize when I came back off the IL. And instead of trying to drive every pitch that I saw, it was more, what can I do with this pitch that I have now, and how can I win the at-bat? And so I've just kind of taken that mentality and tried to put it into practice a little bit more, and seen some good results off of it. So I don't think anything changes.
Todd on the left side.
Brandon, Kurt asked you about the Breckenridge thing. What have your thoughts been on Murph in the short time you've been exposed to him and playing for him and his personality and everything?
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I have to feel like he's a great leader in the clubhouse. He makes you kind of feel at ease. Obviously, he's got a strong personality, and at first it was a little bit intimidating. But once you realize and you play for him for a few games, you realize that he truly wants every player to get the most out of themselves, and he's huge on the culture and everybody playing together, pulling for the same thing. And I think you kind of see that every time we take the field. There's a common goal that if you're 0 for 4 or 4 for 4, the whole team's excited for every single person that pulls through. And I just think that's a reflection of what Murph brings to the table. And he's a super easy guy to play for. You really want to, get back to the dugout and get that high five from him, and feel like he's proud of you. So.
Any last ones for these guys? All right. Good luck today. We'll see you post game.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Whoa, that's fun. All right, not sure what happened there, but there you go. You get some of the Milwaukee Brewers who will be notable starters today. We'll break down a little bit of what came there from Jake Bauers and from Brandon Lockridge, both in the starting lineup for Milwaukee today. Let me pull it up because the Brewers posted this lineup just a matter of minutes ago ahead of those pregame interviews. So Bauers, who has been a first baseman, also a DH, and a pinch hitter for the Crew for the most part, gets the start today. He'll be in the lineup and playing first base for the Crew. And then Lockridge, notable as well. He's kind of been the speedster, a pinch runner for the team or a defensive replacement, especially with the hamstring injury to Jackson Chourio. He's come in late in the game to replace Chourio in a number of those situations. He will start today in center field. So that means Blake Perkins not in the lineup for the Crew today. Instead, Brandon Lockridge gets the start in center. Batting just before him in the lineup will be Jake Bauers, first baseman for the Brewers today. So we shall see what comes of that. Christian Yelich leading off today, Jackson Chourio right behind. Then you get Bryce Terang, William Contreras, Sal Frelick, Caleb Durbin, followed by Bauers, Lockridge, Joey Ortiz, and of course the pitcher today, Quinn Priester, the guy who's from the Chicagoland area, grew up rooting for the Cubs, gets the chance to send them packing as we give you another live look at non-American Family Field. They already took care of business in 2 games already. This is, of course, Wrigley Field down there in Chicago ahead of the Game 3 of the National League Division Series just 3 hours from now. 4:08 is the scheduled first pitch. It is 1:06 here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. All right, we have to take a short break. We've done a lot already. I don't know why that keeps happening. That is a really trippy effect that I'm going to try to work on while we take a quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll get you right back to some of the fun, some of the pregame action at Wrigley ahead of a pivotal Game 3. That's still to come. Thanks for watching the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Defmo with you here on this Wednesday afternoon. We give you another live look at the corner of Clark and Addison there on the north side of Chicago, the site of today's Game 3 between the Brewers and Cubs as the series shifts to Chicago. Keeping an eye on that. Already heard from a pair of members of the Crew, Jake Bauers and Brandon Lockridge. We are expecting to catch Pat Murphy's pregame media appearance during this window of the Wisconsin Live Desk. That's supposed to happen around 2 o'clock, so we'll try to get you that when it happens later later on this afternoon. In the meantime, the other big story, of course, would be the government shutdown now in day 8, entering a second week. Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries just stepped to the podium here, speaking about the shutdown and the ongoing impasse between Democrats and Republicans. Let's listen in live.
At democraticleader.house.gov/share your story. That's democraticleader.house.gov/share your story. We are fighting for you. We know that because of the Republican healthcare crisis and their refusal to address the Affordable Care Act tax credits that are on the brink of expiring, that millions of Americans are about to see their healthcare costs double, triple, or quadruple. And when you get that letter in the mail, share it with us. You can share it with us, as I indicated, and you can include a hashtag, my premium went up. My premium went up. And it's going up because of the continued Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. It's my honor to yield to our Democratic whip, Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader. We are so grateful for your leadership and your vision at this point of healthcare crisis, and I'm proud to be here with these representatives in leadership of our caucus. Here's the terrible thing about the position that the Republicans have backed themselves into with healthcare. It hurts everyone. And this isn't about red states or blue states. These premium hikes, these cuts are going to make healthcare more expensive and harder to obtain for every American. We had a hearing today in the Capitol, and we were joined by a 29-year-old woman, Mariah Plant from West Virginia. And she told us about her family's struggle. She is the full-time caretaker for her brother, Matt, who suffers a lot of disabilities and needs to be home and be on Medicaid. And without that support, she doesn't know how she would be able to provide for her brother. She also runs a small business and receives a tax credit so that she can afford health insurance under the ACA. So she is looking at potentially a cut to Medicaid that jeopardizes her ability to care for her loved one and her family, and in the immediate future, a steep rise in premiums and no ability for her to make that up. Her budget simply doesn't stretch that far. Like most Americans, she doesn't have that extra hundreds of dollars lying around a month to be able to afford health care. And that was the story from West Virginia. And as I look in my district, as premium notices are coming out, a couple in Massachusetts that makes $88,000 a year is looking at having their premium doubled. If we go to Speaker Johnson's hometown of Benton, Louisiana, that same couple making $88,000 will see a tripling of their premium, 3 times. That could be around $23,000 a year for that couple to pay. People can't afford that. 60% of families in this country.
While Democrats continue to make their case on Capitol Hill for why they believe pushing for health care extensions is worth it to push the government into a shutdown, Republicans continue to blame them for the shutdown as well. Remains to be seen as we now are in day 8 of this, entering a second week. There's no real end in sight either, although yesterday the threat from the administration, President Donald Trump, saying there could be a chance that federal workers would not get back pay. The administration warned no guarantee of back pay for the 750,000 currently furloughed federal employees. One of the other notable bits of news today coming from the White House, well, from Washington, D.C. in general, I guess, would be that former FBI Director James Comey has pleaded not guilty in a criminal case that came from President Donald Trump's Department of Justice. Comey entering that not guilty plea just outside the nation's capital, actually in a courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, to allegations that he had lied to Congress 5 years ago, which has started this process here. Defense lawyers almost certainly will move to get the indictment dismissed before a possible trial. Remains to be seen what happens with that. But the former FBI director, James Comey, appointed by President Trump, has now pled not guilty to the charges that he faced. And Comey, in previous interviews, has said he wants a trial, saying bring it on. So we shall see. All right, a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, and then we'll get you back to some of the local news happening here. Very important, the ongoing debate and back and forth, speaking of government shutdown, an agreement that has not been reached between Ascension Wisconsin and United Healthcare. We'll get an update on the ongoing talks and whether there could be an end in sight for the many patients in our area waiting to learn more. That's coming after this break on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, it's the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Defenbaugh with you here as we roll right along on this Wednesday afternoon, 1:17, and going to get you right out to our reporter in the field today. That would be Christina Van Zelst, who has been all over a very important story for so many Wisconsinites. That would be the ongoing disagreement and failed contract negotiations between Ascension Healthcare, or Ascension Wisconsin, and United Healthcare when it comes to insurance coverage for so many patients around our area. Christina, you've been on top of this really since the jump. I know you followed these talks. Where are we at today as you're in the middle of a few different interviews today?
Yeah, Carl, I wish I had a better update for you, but unfortunately both companies still have not come to an agreement today. And that is why this topic was actually brought up at the City Hall Finance and Personnel Committee meeting this morning. This was a communication file on their agenda because this also impacts city workers. And Carl, as you mentioned, there are thousands of Wisconsinites who use United Healthcare, they use Ascension Wisconsin, and really feel like they're left in the dark at this point. We are speaking with a patient coming up here in about 30 minutes who wrote me an email. I want to just read you some of the things that she said she's dealing with, and I'm sure many people can also relate to this. She said that she has spent over the last week trying to lodge a formal complaint with United Healthcare. None of the links are working. She's tried calling United Healthcare representatives, and they kind of refer to her to other places like her HR or her employer. She's also talked to the Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of Insurance. They told her they have to go to the Department of Labor. So in all of this, it just seems like some patients are really getting that runaround without getting an answer, as these two companies still have not come to an agreement. And to take you back, that deadline for this was October 1st. So it's been a week, and patients who are enrolled in United Healthcare who go to Ascension are now considered out of network. So that's where things stand today. Unfortunately, not the update a lot of people were hoping to have at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure incredibly frustrating for that person who reached out, so many of the others hearing this today. Have we gotten any updates from the companies? I know there's been a series of kind of corporate speak statements. Is that basically what we've gotten? Any kind of sign of budging or whether these talks could be reaching a conclusion?
You worded it perfectly, those corporate statements. That's what we've gotten. We saw on the United Healthcare website they had a recently updated statement yesterday. However, it didn't really have a lot of updates, if you will. It did just say that they've been trying to come to an agreement and there has not been an agreement made. So still letting patients know that they're going to have to work with what they can. Obviously, one good thing about this is, if you want to look at the silver lining, a lot of companies have their open enrollment that starts sometimes in November. But then the other flip side of that is people are saying that are not a lot of alternatives to United Healthcare. So when it comes to an update from both sides, I did reach out to Ascension. We haven't heard back yet, but there is that United Healthcare statement on their website. But again, it's nothing new. It's just we've continued to try to work with Ascension, and we haven't come to an agreement at this time.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it is the news of the day, whether it's the good news that people were hoping for, not necessarily. But Christina, thank you so much for staying on top of this. People can look for your reporting later today, our newscasts at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. Thanks again.
Thanks, Carl.
We'll let Christina get back to it, trying to get some answers for you and the thousands of people who are dealing with this. We talk about the government shutdown, the impasse in Washington. Well, this is a different kind of impasse that so many patients are dealing with here in Wisconsin in the meantime. We just keep things rolling here on the Wisconsin Live Desk today. A whole lot of things happening on a very busy Wednesday afternoon. We've told you about some of the news of the day. We, of course, are keeping an eye on things down there in Chicago, the marquee at Wrigley Field, ready for all the fans to get inside in just a matter of hours for Game 3 of the NLDS. And oh, by the way, if you weren't aware, it's also a Packers game week again, as we bring in Tim Van Voren, who continues our sports coverage from a different part of the Midwest here with Lambeau Field behind him. Tim, that early bye for the Packers, all the excitement for the Brewers, and oh yeah, the Packers play in a few days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for the Packers, you're exactly right. The early bye, which I personally think will turn out to be too early for optimum performance as the season goes along. We'll see, if that turns out to be the case. Doesn't mean the Packers can't bounce back after two subpar performances. There's a lot of football left, as Matt LaFleur was telling us today. He's exactly right, but I think this will turn out to be too early for optimum. You maybe be able to, if you get back up there record-wise, position yourself in a good position at the tail end of the regular season. Packers have to hope so. Carl, they didn't play well against the Browns or the Cowboys. Then they had their bye. The quarterback for that Browns team was Joe Flacco. He's the starting quarterback for this Sunday at Lambeau Field for the Bengals. So things can happen. What do they say? Life comes at you quickly. It sure does in the NFL.
Well, and unfortunately for Joe Flacco, Micah Parsons comes at him twice in one season. I'm sure he's not too thrilled about that, but it's such a fascinating nugget to this game now, Tim. You've covered football and the Packers specifically for decades. Can you remember a time like this when a player has started a game against one team and then just a matter of weeks later starting again for a different roster?
You could end up with a player who was on one team and another, but not usually a key player. It might be a special teams guy or something like that. You're talking about a starting quarterback. Even Matt LaFleur was saying today, hey, other than division games where you play a team twice in a season, he doesn't remember ever going through it, or going through a situation where a player was part of a key transaction on a Tuesday and is going to start that week, whether you've seen him before or not. So it's definitely an unusual situation for the Packers. According to LaFleur, Joe Flacco makes it a little unusual because this is a guy who's 40 years old. He's seen everything. He's been in so many different systems. The Bengals think they can plug him in and, just kind of hold their place there a little bit till Joe Burrow maybe comes back later in the season. They wouldn't try this with a less accomplished, less experienced quarterback. At this point, Joe Flacco is really kind of a mercenary, Carl, and that's the role he's in this week for the Bengals. Traded on a Tuesday, He's there today getting up to speed, and he's going to start Sunday here in Green Bay. Packers are big favorites on the board at the start of this week, 2 touchdown favorites against the Bengals. We'll see what the line actually is as you get ready for the kickoff. Now we know that Flacco's the other quarterback.
Yeah, we know they were heavy favorites against Flacco and the Browns, too, and we saw how that turned out as well. We know this as well. Joe Flacco has pretty good receivers to throw to now in Cincinnati when you get to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the rest of it. Let me ask you about the bye week in general and kind of where this team is at. The defense gave up a ton of points to the Cowboys in what eventually ended up as an overtime tie. Where do you see the biggest room for improvement, whether it's on the defensive side, Jordan Love in the offense? What are you going to be looking for right off the jump Sunday afternoon?
Sorry, I don't know if I got your whole comment there or question. The Fields people are going by, Carl. The mowers. I mean, they got to crank it back up. This is the only home game in a 51-day span for the Packers between September 11th, which was their last win, and November 2nd. Very unusual schedule, but the Field folks say that's going to be terrific for the grass. They haven't had much use on it as all. So I digress. I apologize. What could be the best area of improvement for the Packers? I think you'd have to say the offensive line, which just has not played to a very successful level so far, particularly in the run game. They got a little running room going against Dallas later in the game, but that unit has been a disappointment to this point, partially through health, otherwise through execution. And sort of related to that is special teams. The block kick at Cleveland, the block extra point at Dallas, those are just absolute haymakers for the Packers. It turned both those games around. You shouldn't have that happen to you more than once all season. It happened back-to-back weeks, and it really cost the Packers. So those would be the key areas for improvement. Matt LaFleur not making a change at special teams coordinator, not even saying today that they need more practice time on it. He said, you just have to maybe reshuffle the personnel a little bit and pay more attention to the details. And he said, in Matt LaFleur's words on that blocked extra point in Dallas, he said, "We got punked." That's a direct quote. And no coach wants to be able or have to say that about one of his units.
Tim covers it all, including in the weeds, so to speak, with the grounds crew getting ready up there in Green Bay also. Since we're talking about the early bye as well, my first thought goes to, okay, maybe later in the season it's a chance to rest people, a chance to get healthy for a possible playoff push there. This comes so early in the season. Where are we at with the health of this team? And first and foremost, perhaps a couple of those guys on the offensive line.
Yeah, early in the season, Carl, I'm not a fan of it. Can't do anything about it. You play the schedule you're given by the NFL. The earliest possible week that any team could be on a bye is after 4 games. That's what the Packers got this year. The Bears did it too. The Vikings are on a bye this week. So, those teams in the NFC North are getting their breaks early. Vikings have already played 2 games overseas, so they could use the break. I think for Chicago and Green Bay, it's not really what you're looking for because, the weather's going to get worse. Packers are going to have a lot of home games late in the season, a lot of outdoor games late in the season. That's going to take a big toll on them. Even, you're playing at Denver in December. That's an outdoor game. You're playing Chicago late in the year. That's an outdoor game. The conditions could certainly start to wear on this football team. So not what you'd like, in my opinion, but that's what you get. It'd be fine if you were 4-0. The fact that you're 2-1-1 makes it not quite as exciting. And Carl, now the whole rest of the year, sportscasters, we all have to say the Packers record is blank, blank, and 1. Boy, that just stinks, to be honest with you. Blank, blank, and 1. Bad enough that you tied the game. Now we have to reference it all season long.
That was my number one thought after that game ended, Tim, was how annoying this is going to be on graphics, in the standings, figuring out playoff scenarios, and where everyone fits in the seating. It's all going to be a mess, right?
It's all going to be a mess for sure. Maybe it'll work out for the better for the Packers. You never know when they get to the record situation. Yeah. But, to me, that game felt like a loss in Dallas as you just watched it all unfold and you went into the locker room afterwards. Yes, it was a tie. It was perilously close to a loss with the time almost running out, but it just felt like it was bottoming out. It was a loss. We'll see when all's said and done where it is for the Packers on the record. Bottom line is they need to and they should play much better against a lesser opponent this week here in the person of the Cincinnati Bengals.
We'll let you get back to it. I know a busy day for you up there in Green Bay and looking ahead to the return of Packers football this weekend. But since you're the sports director, got to ask you about the other big game happening a little farther south as well. We're under 3 hours to go here before Game 3. What are you most looking forward to in that matchup today, and what do you make of the performance of these Brewers through 2 games of the postseason?
I think you have to be, as a Brewer observer, very excited about the way the team has played. They've had a little adversity. They've overcome that. They've come back in 2 games. They have their full complement of pitchers and bullpen folks ready to go. It all lines up very well. Beautiful day. You never know what the weather's going to be on those outdoor stadiums this time of year. Beautiful day. It's all in place for the Brewers. So I'm very much looking forward to see if they can just get over that hump. They have not had a lot of postseason success, as we all know. Get over that hump, get into the next round, be it doing it after game 3 or 4 if they have to, game 5, but getting to that second round, it certainly would be anticlimactic if they did not see that happen this year after having the best record in the majors, of course, during the regular season and getting off to the quick start in this series.
It is that great time of the year for a sports director, a sports fan. You got it all going on as Tim is up there in Green Bay today. We are, of course, keeping an eye on things down at Wrigley as well. Thank you so much for making some time for us here, Tim. And we'll check in with you hopefully later on as well. Appreciate it.
Sounds great, Carl. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon.
Yes, indeed. And right back to it goes TVV, our sports director there, as we give you a live look at Wrigley Field. So we go from Lambeau, where the preparations are underway for the return of Packers football this Sunday against the Bengals and against Joe Flacco. The quirks of an NFL season. You never know quite what you're going to see, even when you've been covering it as long as Tim has. And, of course, looking ahead to Game 3 of the NLDS inside of Wrigley Field in under 3 hours. Also inside Wrigley, that would be the podium, where we are hoping to hear from Pat Murphy around 1:20 today, or excuse me, that would have already happened, 2 o'clock today. There's a lot going on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Have you gotten a sense of that already today? It's a fun one, though, and we'll keep it rolling next with an interesting interview, a notable anniversary happening next month, and there's a new museum exhibit here in Milwaukee that pays tribute to that. Can you guess what I'm teasing right now? Stick around for a couple minutes. We'll be back on the Wisconsin Live Desk with that interview.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here on an absolutely gorgeous Wednesday afternoon here in Milwaukee. We have had a very busy show already. So much to get to when we see the blue skies and sunshine over our city and our Great Lake behind it there. Of course, we're focused on the baseball game down in Chicago. We have the football preparations happening up in Lambeau, some of the news of the day. And then actually, let me pop that picture back up because it's a good one. MSOE's Groman Museum here in Milwaukee has a really interesting exhibit running now, perfectly timed for the 50th anniversary of one of the more infamous shipwrecks on Lake Michigan. And a man who knows plenty about that joins us now. Let's bring in James Kieselberg, the director of the Groman Museum, joining us live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. James, thank you so much. This is a fascinating exhibit. I can't wait to get into this with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here, Carl. Thanks for having me.
So why don't you tell our guests, our viewers here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, why the timing of this exhibit on the Edmund Fitzgerald is so appropriate for you guys?
Well, this fall marks our 18th anniversary at the Groman Museum, but it's also the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. Our new exhibition, The Legend Lives On 50 Years Later, is a commemoration of that in painting, photos, drawings, videos. We have a boat model of the Fitz, just a nice selection of art related to the ship itself, but also reflective of the tragedy that befell them November 10th, 1975.
Yeah, that 50th anniversary coming up in just a matter of weeks. For people who are maybe not familiar, honestly, not growing up around here, I hadn't necessarily heard of the Fitz until I moved here, and then it becomes this story that has just lived on through the decades. Of course, the largest ship on the Great Lakes at the time that it was built and launched, and then goes down in this terrible November storm 50 years ago. What is it about the ship, about its story, that you think is carried through over half a century now?
Well, even though the boat itself only paid a visit to its home port of Milwaukee once during the steel strike in 1959, it's a real Milwaukee story and related to Milwaukee history, because the boat itself was commissioned by Mr. Edmund Fitzgerald. He was the president and CEO of the Northwestern Mutual Insurance Company. He commissioned the boat in 1957, as you mentioned, to be the largest vessel on the Great Lakes to date, and it was completed in 1958 and launched. And it traveled for 17 years, set payload records, over 27,000 tons of iron ore carried. It moved over 1 million miles in its lifetime, and likely would still be in operation to this day if it weren't for that tragedy that befell them, as I mentioned, in 1975.
And there you're seeing some of the information on your screen of the new exhibit, The Legend Lives On, at the Groman Museum. Already up and running, runs through December. The gallery night event I certainly want to ask you about specifically, but it also ties into this amazing pop culture over the years as well, when it comes to the Gordon Lightfoot song that so many people have heard, even if they didn't realize what ship is actually being referenced there, or didn't know the connection to Milwaukee necessarily. It's amazing the legacy this ship has had, given the tragedy that befell it.
Well, certainly the Lightfoot song placed the boat in the public consciousness. It wouldn't be quite the story or quite the history without that. That said, the story goes that Lightfoot was on a transcontinental flight, and he was paging through a Newsweek magazine at the time, and he saw this little mention of a boat that went down in Lake Superior some 2 weeks earlier. And he thought, well, 29 crew members lost their lives in this tragedy, and all it got was a couple of paragraphs of play in the Newsweek. And so he resolved to go back home and pen the tale that is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It ran to number 2 on the Billboard charts in 1976, so it was a widely known song, and one that I think most of us knew growing up. Our parents likely played that, or for the older folks among us, they played it themselves. It obviously was very, very well known, and that really shined a light on the tragedy.
Yeah,
and,
the gales
and the significance of
so
it.
speak,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So many things. Even the title of our exhibition, those are the first lines in the song. The legend lives on. And absolutely, the gales of November. There's a number of books and articles with those borrowed titles, thanks to Lightfoot.
Let's get into some of the photos and some of the art that you've shared that people can see in person at this exhibit through December, starting with a photo of the man himself, Edmund Fitzgerald, as you said, the ties to Northwestern Mutual. I understand his family was also involved in shipping, so he was really a big proponent of promoting Great Lakes shipping and, of course, having his name on that biggest boat at the time.
Yes, I believe his grandfather was W.E. Fitzgerald. There was a W.E. Fitzgerald boat at the turn of the 20th century. So yeah, a long line of shipping captains and boat captains along the way. And yeah, a very prideful photo here. Mr. Fitzgerald with his namesake. That's likely when it was laid up in Milwaukee Harbor in 1959 during that steel strike. But it paid visit to its home port here. And yes, very much a man enamored with his creation, and that is the Edmund Fitzgerald itself. As I mentioned, it was launched in 1958, leased to the Columbia Transportation Company by Northwestern Mutual, but it was owned by the company, and yeah, very, very significant to both Mr. Fitzgerald's life and the history of the Great Lakes.
Interesting. One of the other pieces that you guys shared with us, I believe this is a photograph as well. Is this from its launch or just kind of in operation?
That is the major photograph of its launch in 1958,
Wow.
and that is at the Great Lakes Engineering Works in River Rouge, Michigan, adjacent to the Henry Ford's plant in River Rouge. And so, yeah, a lot of steel moved through that area, and of course, the boat was destined to haul iron ore for its lifespan of 17 years, and this is a photo of its launch in real time there.
I understand there was a little bit of superstition, fear around even going back to the launch, something like the champagne bottle not breaking on the first try when it was christened. What are some of the stories surrounding this ship that unfortunately ended up with such an awful demise?
That is one of those legends that folks kind of saw as a bad omen right out of the gate. And of course, in hindsight, once this tragedy befell in 1975, it's easy to go back and say, well, this, that, or the other thing. But the rumor has it that Mrs. Fitzgerald was to christen the boat with a champagne bottle, and upon the first strike, failed to break the bottle. And I think the second or the third try, she did. But folks looked at that as a little bit of an omen. And as I said, hindsight is likely what informed that more than anything. Story goes that once it was launched into the river there, a gentleman watching from the opposite shore had a heart attack almost in real time as it was launched. And so another one of those where, perhaps a apocryphal story, but at the same time, in hindsight, again, seen as one of those things that maybe the ship was doomed from the start. And I'm not so certain I buy that, but at the same time, it makes for good storytelling.
It certainly helps with the legend for sure, especially as we're in Halloween season and all the spooky, ominous things that people try to draw ties to after the fact when it comes to history. We have a few of the other pieces that are available for display in this exhibit. Tell us about this one. It really gives such a great sense of scale to what was this massive ship.
Absolutely. The ship, when it was built, 729 feet, the largest to ever travel the Great Lakes. And this is during that steel strike in 1959 when it was laid up in Milwaukee. We see Rockwell International, then Allen Bradley in the background there. And yes, folks admiring the largest vessel to ever travel the lakes. And
I know
so
some of this is perspective, but that massive clock tower looks minuscule in this photo.
Absolutely, but what a spectacular vessel it was. And obviously a lot of reasons to celebrate it during its lifetime, and then a lot of reasons to lament its demise and to commemorate it to this day.
So we're seeing some of the photos, some of the historic mentions of the boat, and then we get into some of the other forms of art here. Tell us about this piece that's on display.
This is one of a suite of paintings that we borrowed from Northwestern Mutual Life as well as the Milwaukee Public Library. This is the boat under construction. One of Milwaukee's finest painters of the time, industrial artist named Edwin Lewandowski, painted this when it was being built in 1957. Mr. Fitzgerald commissioned Lewandowski to paint the vessel under construction, as well as to provide paintings of the final product on the water. And so this is just a great picture of the scaffolding, the sheer scale relative to the workers. And that painting is a prominent piece in the exhibition.
Yeah, that's amazing to see, again, that sense of scale. If you're just joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, by the way, we're chatting with James Kieselberg, the director of MSOE's Groman Museum, which right now in October is hosting this current exhibit, The Legend Lives On 50 Years Later, all focused on the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. Let's get back to some of the art here as well, James. Tell us about this piece. Again, it's not the photo that we saw earlier, but another sense of scale when it comes to what this ship was able to do. It's impressive to see it like this.
That is the one Lewandowski finished in 1959, and it may have been when it was laid up here in Milwaukee, but he added the loaders, the Hewlett loaders, they're called. They move the iron ore and load and unload the vessel for cartage. And this is the finished painting, finished boat on the water, and one of Lewandowski's finest maritime paintings. And that is front and center in the exhibition. That's the most prominent piece, I think, featured.
I'd be curious about your perspective as an artist as well, or as someone who curates art for the museum. We've seen the difference between photography and some of the oil painting as well here. What do you draw from each of those, whether it's the realistic and kind of historic marker of what something looked like and the technology when it comes to cameras of the time versus an artist's interpretation and what's lasted over the years? How do you view some of those differences of the pieces that you have in this exhibit?
Well, the sheer volume of images available of the Fitz is a testament to its importance, its significance as a vessel on the Great Lakes. And what it does is it informs us in a number of ways. You know, we have the documentary, as you mentioned, and the photographs and some of the other schematics and drawings provided in the exhibition. And we also see a more artistic flair that from Edmund Lewandowski being one of the primary artists there. But in the exhibition, we also have a photo essay by Chris Winters, a maritime authority, Great Lakes shipwreck diver, photographer, a real complete source of knowledge on the Great Lakes and on these boats in particular. The photo essay covers the Arthur Anderson. The Anderson was one of the last ships to be, or actually was the last to be in communication with the Fitz on that fateful night. And so we have kind of it provides, with the art, the photographs, all those things combined provides a complete picture. And again, a testament to the significance of this great vessel.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. And for you guys at the Groman, I understand there was a previous exhibit with much of this, but unfortunate timing when it came to when that was unveiled. And obviously you guys get to bring it back for the 50th anniversary. Now tell us about that and the chance that people will have now to finally, hopefully see this exhibit in droves.
Well, we did do a special exhibition very similar to this one in the year 2000 for the 45th anniversary.
Or 2020,
and we
yeah,
know
2020.
2020, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Testament to my age.
It feels that long ago, but also not at the same time.
Yeah, when you're my age, everything starts at 2000. But yes, in 2020, and thank you for the clarification, because we all know what happened in 2020. A lot of us were homebound. Visitorship at the museum was down when you could only allow 10 in the gallery at any one time. Visitorship was low. And so we resolved almost immediately at that time that we would borrow these materials again, borrow this art, and make it available to our patrons for the 50th anniversary.
You know what I was just thinking about as you were chatting about some of the photography and the number of different images we actually have of the Fitzgerald. One thing that struck me when I moved here, again, not being familiar growing up, but then learning the story of this ship, it has this iconic legend and all these stories and songs behind it. I assumed it was from the 1800s or, you know, a much older ship. And then it turns out it was operational in basically the modern time in that sense, 50 years ago now. What do you make of that and the fact that this is a more recent story for Great Lakes shipping? This is not one of the wooden schooners from back in the day.
Well, with the song, it kind of lends that, you know, the song had that kind of historical tale component added to it. And I think that lent itself to a little bit of the nostalgia and why we may think that that was something that happened much, much earlier, or that maybe it traveled the lakes for decades. But instead, you know, being a mid-century phenomenon, a very different story. But I think that all of those kind of Great Lakes tales or the stories of yore, if you will, the lore of the Great Lakes and the lure of the Great Lakes, it's kind of a romanticized distillation of activities. And so for that, I think that's what kind of gives us that impression that it was much, much older and much more of an historic tale than it was, because shipwrecks on the Great Lakes they've been going on, unfortunately, for centuries.
Yeah.
And so we always kind of get that feel, as you mentioned. You might imagine a wooden schooner or a three-masted ship. But instead, these were, at the time, very much a state-of-the-art creations. and state-of-the-art boats to travel the lakes.
But as many ships have learned over the years, no match for Mother Nature, no matter how state-of-the-art you are necessarily. Let me ask you about this as well, because I believe this is the book as well, The Legend Lives On, and Christopher Winters, there referenced, one of the authors, will be featured in this gallery talk and book signing that you guys are doing on the 17th. So tell us about that event specifically, and a trip to the museum is always wonderful, but what it's like to get that kind of firsthand knowledge and back and forth with an artist.
Well, it's a special presentation, as you mentioned, for Milwaukee's Gallery Night on October 17th. And for what it's worth, Chris Winters is the primary authority to me on all things Great Lake. And this particular volume, the 50th anniversary of The Legend Lives On by Bruce, Lynn, and Chris, it's perhaps the most comprehensive and complete volume dedicated to the Fitz. I don't know that there is one image overlooked. It's just filled with every image available of the boat. It also has that photo essay, as I mentioned, of the Arthur Anderson and the connections between the two. It's very well written, very well presented, and as I mentioned, I don't think that Bruce or Chris left a stone unturned when it came to acquiring and gathering material for this special volume.
Fascinating. Well, it should be a wonderful evening there, learning more about this infamous ship in many ways, this legend that has lived on for half a century. We can mention this as well, James, as we're close to wrapping up here. You guys aren't the only ones with a featured exhibition, so to speak. We have a special actually here on Fox 6 that our creative team has been working hard at, behind the scenes, a documentary to commemorate 50 years that's going to be airing in November as well, called The Gales of November, the final voyage of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It's going to be an hour-long documentary set to air here on Fox Local as well as on our channel Fox 6. So yes, so much interest. I loved being able to do this interview with you as a pairing too. You can go and see the images, learn so much of the history. Hopefully folks will also check out the documentary when it's here on our channel. Thank you so much for a really insightful and interesting conversation today.
Well, it's my pleasure, Carl. Thanks so much for having me.
That is, again, James Kieselberg, the director of MSOE's Groman Museum. If you want to check out the exhibit that is going on right now, actually opened in the month of October, but runs through December 1st, it is The Legend Lives On, 50 years later, all you could possibly want to learn about the Edmund Fitzgerald. All right, we want to get you back to some of the other excitement happening around our region today. We take you back down live. Let's just say the crowds are growing outside of Wrigley Field. Doesn't look like the gates are open quite yet, but some people getting in line to see two teams that will be battling it out, led by this man. Pat Murphy stepped to the podium just a second ago. Let's listen in to Murph getting the media ready for Game 3 of the NLDS.
Get going, doing my little doodles. I can't find them. No, I want to tell you, the pit in my stomach just fell down. So I get up, I walk around and go to the horse racing game, go to other games, and I can't find them. And I'm in a full-on panic. So I go to this security guard and I say, look, I can't find my kid. He looks at me like, there's like 12 people here. What do you mean you can't find your kid? I said, I can't find my kid. And I am racing. I go in the bathroom. I go in the female bathroom. I don't care. I'm crazy. I go in the kitchen. Now the kitchen door is over here too. I go in the kitchen. I'm like, hey, my kid, little blonde-haired kid. They're looking at me like, you're crazy. I'm running around in a panic. Well, he was sitting like right along this railing, way in the corner, in a machine that was facing this way, or a car racing game. And I'm standing there, and I'm at my table like this. The police officer's like, "Look, tell me, his name and what." And I'm like, "Don't lock that door. Nobody gets out of this door." You know what I mean? And I'm that panicked. And he comes strolling up. Hey, Dad, can I get some French fries? You know what I mean? Where have you been? Now I don't want to show him the panic. You know what I mean? So I think if any parent who ever loses his kid for 5 minutes, I was full on. I might have looked there. I mean, but he has no idea the grief that I was going through. Oh, Sophia's here. We can start. New person. I see you sneaking in. What is it? Zoe, stand up. You're not just Zoe. Please stand up, Zoe. Where are you from? Well, it's great to have you. Anybody else new? Security, were you with us last time? Let's go. What's your name? What is it? Oh, that's beautiful. You're from Chicago? All right. Who are these two dudes rolling in late? Look like you came out of the casino. Huh? Nice. Where are you from? Who do you work for? You're from Mexico, but who do you work for? Or are you just here out of the casino? All right. I'd check him if you don't mind. I don't trust it. Huh? Okay. No, you don't be sorry. I just like to know who you are coming in here. Now they're leaving. Holy smoke, the plot thickens. All right. What do we got?
All right, we'll get started with Murph. First question. Start with Kurt, 4 rows back on the left.
Murph, could you give us the reasoning, the thinking behind going Lockridge and Bowers in those 2 spots?
Yeah, this is, I put a lot of time into it, got a lot of research into it, but yeah, both of those guys are playing great. Lockridge is, deserves a chance, and it gives us some flexibility in the middle of the game. You don't feel like the starter's going to go that far. We still have weapons in the middle of the game and guys we want to end the game. So it's just a little bit of a, instead of starting, we're maybe using our more reserves first. Okay. Yes.
Todd.
I see Jackson's in the lineup. Is he shown improvement since yesterday? What's he saying today about how he feels?
Well, obviously he didn't do much yesterday, but I think he feels as good as he felt the day before yesterday.
Adam, right in the front, second row.
Murph, just to follow up on the first part, Perk is
100%. 100%.
That's just flexibility to deploy him wherever you want. And is it partially in case Jackson has to come out again that you have Perk?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that we will use a replacement if we're in a position to. You kind of can't plan on that, but they're a little bit interchangeable. The way Tyon has thrown lately, his sequencing and that type of stuff, we're probably going to see him twice around. And then we're going to see other people, and it kind of dictates how they use the other people. And yeah, it's just kind of all hands on deck right now.
A few more from Murph. Come over here on the right.
Hello.
Hi.
We know the series still has one more win for you guys to go through the championship series, but are you looking at all at the next opponent?
We're not looking at the next opponent. We know how good the Cubs are, and we respect them. And we know how tough it is to win when teams have their back to the wall. So we're taking today like the only game we have, and we're going after it.
We'll stay on the right side. We'll go back to the 4th row.
Murph, they say the final out's always the hardest out. Final win in a series is probably the hardest win as well. Why is that?
The final out?
The final out of a game is always the toughest out. Is it the same thing for the final win of a series? Is it the hardest one to get?
Oh, I mean, yes. And because nothing matters until you get it. You know what I mean? So there's no other win that matters until you get it. And when the other team is playing to hang on, it's it makes it difficult. You really have to rise above all the emotion and rise above all the tension and pressure in the game and still be able to perform right to the very end. And our sport, baseball, where how the ball bounces can dictate a win or a loss, it makes it very it's the reason you play more than one game, winner take all.
Stay here on the right side.
Hi again. how do you deal with your young players to deal with the pressure of this scenario? Obviously, you guys ended up with the best record in baseball, but for some of your players, it's the first time they're in these stances, you know?
Yeah. I think the best way that I can describe it, when you're doing it with a group and you're close to that group, it's easier to do it. If we're all walking together arm in arm, it's easier to face those type of pressures together and then be responsible to each other. Yes?
You mentioned earlier about... Hold on, we'll get your microphone, yep.
You had mentioned earlier about how, like, Taillon might go, you might see him a second time, kind of reacting to what they do. Where you're up 2-0 in a series, are there things that you can do to force the Cubs to do things? Are there moves you can make to where instead of being defensively, you're the aggressor forcing the action?
Yeah, I mean, I think you try to do that. You know what I mean? I don't think the gamesmanship is that big of a deal in a game when you know each other that well, you know. We know things about the Cubs that the general public, even people like yourselves that follow it closely, aren't going to see in the game. And we study those things and we process those things and we say, if this, then that. There's no real way to get it right, so to speak. You know, I can think back to the first two games and things we did, and you're like, good thing it worked out, because that wasn't conventional, you know, that type of thing. So you got to be willing to risk and be offensive, and at the same time not set yourself up to get caught, you know.
Come back over here on the right side, third row.
Murph, you watched Quinn start against these guys early in the year when he was probably at his lowest point, and since then he's made a lot of changes, worked a lot of things out in season. Can you just speak a little bit to how you think he matches up against these guys now and how he's a different matchup for these guys now maybe compared to early in the year?
Yeah, he was very uncertain of himself early, and he was trying to find a home in the big leagues. And his first couple starts were kind of, maybe, you know. And I think in that first start against the Cubs, he got beat up pretty good. But I think we learned a lot about him. And then as the season went on, he just kept getting better and better. And I think now he's at a better spot. They know him very well. It's not a matter of matchups. I mean, the Cubs have beaten all the great pitchers in the game. Nobody done. They got a great experienced lineup, 1 through 9. And, you know, we're just trying to control them best we can.
A follow-up off that, if I may. Do you think that with what he's learned about himself this year, that he's in a better spot to adapt against these guys to how they might be trying to go after him?
Yeah, I think coupled with William and their plan going in, and what they've done previously and how that all works, you know, again, it comes down to executing pitches. That's what it comes down to.
Go to Kurt on the far left, fourth row.
What are you seeing in Joey's at-bats this postseason, specifically with the ability to kind of work the count and the plate discipline?
Yeah, interesting. First two games, and again, 2 games don't indicate what a guy is necessarily, but Joey has stepped up in those games and had an approach that I haven't seen in the past as definitively. He's had one at-bat that I'd be totally disappointed in. One at-bat in game 1. Other than that, he's done a really nice job of helping him and allowed us to keep him in the game. Follow-up question,
Go ahead, Kurt.
If I may. Go one seat back if you're going to do that. It's like Mother May I. May I take one step forward? May I take? No, you may not. You may take one step backwards.
Do you think that's a product of it being the postseason and more focus, or what do you attribute to, like, just a noticeable change, I guess, in the approach?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Joey's at a point where he wants to play and he realizes he's good. And I can do this. I got to stick to it. So I think he's got a good approach right now and he has to stick to it.
Come over here to the third row in the middle.
Murph, you talked about Lockridge deserving a chance. Just what have you noticed about him, since he's came into the organization the last couple of months?
Well, he was great for us. Sending him to AAA crushed me. You know what I mean? It really did, because he was great for us, and he helped us win games. But we wanted to see Perk get on track. Then Lockridge goes to AAA and just absolutely look at those numbers in the last month. It's undeniable. Some numbers you can't really count on because what's the mental state of the player or what's going on in the player's life, injury, whatever. And just to see that kid and then coming here for the 5 days and performing the way he has and in inter squads and things like that. I mean, yeah.
Come back to the right side.
Do you have anything to say to Cubs fans that call American Family Field Wrigley North?
Do I have anything to say? No, I mean, fans are fanatics. You know what I mean? They love their team, and I respect fans that love their team. I grew up loving, a sports team, and you couldn't get me off it. You know what I mean? And it became emotional. So I get it. They can call it whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. If you were at the 2 previous games, you knew that the Brewers fans are well represented.
Any last ones for Murph? All right, Pat, thanks. We'll see you post-game.
That's it. Nice. Nice.
That is part of the Pat Murphy experience there. You see, he's allowed to leave the room and is like, that's it. I'll answer more questions. I'll hang out here. That is why the Brewers manager is one of a kind for sure and has made himself such an ingrained part of the franchise. Of course, the bench coach for Craig Counsell before winning National League Manager of the Year last year in his first year. This year leads the team to the best record in baseball and 2 wins right now in the NLDS, 1 win away from sweeping his former boss out of the postseason. We shall see. What an interesting backstory and career that man has had in baseball and all that he has done for this Milwaukee Brewers franchise for sure over many years, but 2 now as the skipper calling the shots for the Crew. Game 3 of the NLDS coming in just 2 hours. 4:08 is the first pitch down at Wrigley Field. We'll give you a live look outside. As you can see, quite a bit of fans already on hand, hoping to get in those doors and get in their seats early for what should be an excellent game on an absolutely gorgeous October afternoon down there on the north side of Chicago. October baseball outside a stadium that does not have a roof, of course, like American Family Field. You never quite know what it's going to be like, but it is absolutely gorgeous. 54 degrees is the temperature here in Milwaukee, a little bit warmer in Chicago, but right around there with the sun shining and the players ready to roll. One other thing that you heard Murphy mention, and we also brought to you live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk when the notable players were at the podium. That would be Jake Bauers and Brandon Lockridge. They are in the starting lineup. I mentioned it earlier. Pat Murphy was asked about it, said these guys have been playing really well and deserving of a spot. Also when it comes to the ideas of what could happen with possibly a bullpen game for the Cubs. So you use these guys early and then you have some really good players like Blake Perkins, like some of the other folks who have cycled in at first base and DH for the Crew, able to potentially pitch hit and enter the game depending on the matchups throughout. So we'll see how that all works out. There's the lineup for the Crew in a potential sweep of a Game 3 today. Christian Yelich gets the leadoff spot in that DH position. Jackson Churio in the lineup and in the field despite some of the bulky hamstring that he's had to work through. We know how good he has been in the first 2 games of this series. 3 hits in just 2 innings of Game 1 and the blast, an absolute laser of a home run, the 3-run homer that put the Crew up big in Game 2 on their way to a 2-0 series lead. After that, you get Bryce Terang, the second baseman, who's turned into such a great hitter this season as well. William Contreras, the stalwart who had a solo home run in Game 2, actually his first in his postseason career. Sal Frelick in right follows that with third baseman Caleb Durbin. After that, then you get Jake Bauers at first and Brandon Lockridge, who you heard Murphy talk about playing so well early in the season, tore it up at AAA, has been kind of a speed demon, pinch runner, defensive replacement for the Crew, gets the start in Game 3 of the National League Division Series today in center field, and followed in the 9 spot by Joey Ortiz there, and your starting pitcher, Quinn Priester. All right, we are going to take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is a great day, man. We've had all kinds of good interviews, all kinds of anticipation leading up to the Brewers and Cubs down there at Wrigley. In just over 20 minutes, our special coverage here on the Wisconsin Live Desk starts with Kim Murphy and Ben Handelman getting you ready for the game. An extended edition of the Live Desk today will start at 2:30, carry you through our 4 o'clock news with Lily Zhao and Ted Perry live down there at Wrigley to cover Game 3 of the NLDS. But first, a 2-minute break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll see what we find for you after this.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back. Carl Defmo with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We keep things rolling on this Wednesday afternoon. We've had a lot of local news, especially in the sports department, some interesting interviews for you, and of course the national headlines when it comes to the ongoing government shutdown and some of the things playing out in D.C. today. I'm looking up because I want to get you something that just came up on our feeds here. Let's bring you out to a press conference after one of the inmates from the New Orleans prison escape has been captured now in Atlanta, and a legal authority, law enforcement are speaking right now about this capture. Let's listen in live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
An agent on 80 to 90% of these operations that have resulted in seizures. I want to thank him for his efforts. The combination of the intelligence and tactical expertise has allowed us to identify supply routes, document transactions, and conduct controlled purchases, which will help us deliver convictions in court. All of this work in coordination with our No Dice program, our No Dice team, has truly been dynamic. This crew is firing on and clicking on all cylinders. The No Dice initiative has been one of the most, I believe, transformative initiatives that we've seen in recent history. The work of this group, the work of Special Agent in Charge Josh Jackson, who's going to walk up here and walk you through some of the finer points of this work, it's truly been extraordinary. And with that, Daniel, let me bring you up to walk us through some of the details on this.
Sure.
Thank you, DA. My name is Daniel Shanks, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the District Attorney's Office, and I run our New Orleans Data-Informed Community Engagement Program, which is No Dice. The goal of No Dice is to make New Orleans safer by being smarter about how we approach violent crime. And we start all that with being data-driven, mapping the locations and concentrations of crime, and then analyzing the criminal activity so we understand the patterns and the environmental conditions that breed that violence. Armed with that, we team up with our state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies, and we develop a plan, a precise strategic intervention. And with that, the heavy lift then goes to law enforcement. They develop locations, they develop targets, they do controlled buys, they execute search warrants, and that's exactly what happened here. After those search warrants are executed, on the DA's office to dismantle the criminal operation that's performing as a retail business, and we do that with our Title 40 seizure laws. And I just want to commend the Joint Task Force of the ATF and NOPD Special Operations Division TAC 2 for their flawless work to develop this target. They surveilled it, they did controlled buys, and they executed the search warrant with the assistance of HSI, of Louisiana State Police, of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. And because of that, we had a return of a significant amount of narcotics, over $150,000 in drug proceeds and illegal firearms. And as the DA said, this is a tried and true method. From this working relationship and this strategy, we have shut down New Image Market, 24-Hour Tire Shop, Claiborne Car Wash, Algiers Car Wash, and to stand culture fashion. And I'm just extremely proud of the work and the cooperation and the coordination of this multi-agency task force. And we will not stop. We will continue, and we will continue to stand up for all New Orleanians who want nothing more than peace, safety, and justice. Thank you.
Daniel, thank you for your efforts in this regard. And thank you for realizing that we can do more together than we can do in silos. You know, you can make an arrest or two, or you can arrest 10 people at a time. But that area and that void, it gets filled with other folks that come in and commit crimes as well. But when you take a place, a hub of criminality off the street, you make it very, very difficult for them to backfill and come in and keep reoffending and keep plaguing our community. I want to bring up Councilmember King, who is one of those council members who keeps his ear to the ground in every single neighborhood. And when he hears something, whether it is problems at Iggy's down the way, whether it is New Image or whether it is culture, he makes sure that he's coordinated with law enforcement so that he can deliver for the people of his district. Councilmember King.
Thank you, D.A. Williams. I want to start off by...
Well, that continues in either New Orleans or Atlanta. I'm unclear on the location here. This was a coordinated effort after some of the inmates that escaped, 10 of them, from the Orleans Parish Prison, going back to May 16th of this past spring. It's led to a multi-agency manhunt, and today the announcement that one of those inmates, another one, has been captured after being on the run for half a year now at this point. That would be 28-year-old Derek Groves, who was arrested Wednesday in Atlanta, Georgia, after making it out of that Orleans Parish Prison back in May. So updates from those local authorities continuing. We are going to take another break on the Wisconsin Live Desk here, get you back to some other stories of the day after these 2 minutes. Thanks a lot for watching.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Just about 10 minutes to go in our 2-hour stretch here. Then we switch gears, turn things over to Ben Handelman and Kim Murphy, who will be handling your Brewers coverage leading up to our Fox 6 newscast at 4. Of course, also times out with the 4:08 first pitch, Game 3 of the NLDS between the Brewers and the Cubs, as it says on the Wrigley Field marquee there, live from the north side of Chicago, where the gates are now open. Plenty of people already going inside the stadium to get their seats, get situated for what should be a good one today. It's been such an entertaining series already. The Crew up 2-0. The decisive Game 3 could be today as they try to bust out the brooms against their rival Cubs. What's really been impressive, the Cubs scoring in the first inning of both games, including a 3-run absolute blast of a home run in Monday night's Game 2, and immediate answers in both games from the Brewers in the bottom of the first inning and the innings that followed there. It's been such an impressive display of skill, of talent, of character from that Brewers team that was the best team in baseball throughout the regular season and certainly is playing like it so far in the postseason as well. A few of the other things that we want to mention for you here on this Wednesday afternoon happening around the country right now. We'll give you a live look at the White House, where President Donald Trump is supposed to speak to members of the media shortly. This is not necessarily related to the government shutdown, instead apparently related to his views on the organization Antifa, but that's, I'm sure, going to lead to plenty of questions about the ongoing government shutdown in Washington and around the country, the continued legal battle after the decision by the administration to mobilize the National Guard, including sending Texas National Guard troops to the Chicago area, despite the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, along with the mayor of Chicago, not asking and not wanting the presence of those National Guard troops in their city and state. So much of that still to come. The president right now, not sure when he will speak to the media. It was supposed to be relatively soon, but the update we're getting from reporters there at the White House is saying that the pool of reporters, as it's known, the pool is currently being held in the Blue Room of the White House, waiting entry into the state dining room where that event is supposed to take place today. So no timing yet, but if it happens here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, we'll certainly try to bring that to you. Something else that we are following, of course, is the ongoing debate further down the National Mall at the U.S. Capitol building, where the government is in fact shut down now on day 8 of this. No end in sight necessarily either, as frustrations continue to run high. Debate actually between the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, and 2 other Democratic senators spilled over into the hallways of the U.S. Capitol building, in addition to the shutdown fight and Speaker Johnson's refusal to swear in an Arizona Congresswoman-elect who won a special election 2 weeks ago and has yet to be sworn in. So we shall see what happens in the ongoing back and forth. The blame game, the name-calling certainly continues in our nation's capital, and there at the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. today. One of the other things, like I mentioned, the possible use of the National Guard in Democratic cities around the country. Troops from Texas, and again, this is the Texas National Guard, not the Illinois National Guard, are currently stationed right now outside of Chicago, and that's despite a lawsuit brought by the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago. Lots of opposition from Democratic elected leaders. The exact mission for those Guard troops outside of the Chicago area right now, not clear. The president has called Chicago a, quote, hellhole of crime, despite many police statistics and the numbers out there showing actually significant drops in most crimes throughout the city of Chicago. The president has also hinted that the National Guard could be deployed to Memphis by Friday. So a couple of the different fronts, so to speak, for that use of federal officials, possibly federal military members as well, in different civilian settings across the country. All right, we are closing in on the end of the Wisconsin Live Desk. We do have to get one more quick break in here before we switch gears over to our special Brewers coverage today. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here at our Milwaukee studios. We give you another live look down at where the action will take place. Lily Zhao, Ted Perry are at Wrigley Field for us. Ben Handelman, Kim Murphy will be handling the coverage here from Milwaukee. Should be a fun next couple hours looking ahead to Game 3 of the NLDS. Much more to come after this break on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Back here with you on the Wisconsin Live Desk as we wrap up these first couple hours of the coverage today, although we are far from over here as we get ready to switch gears and turn things over to a more Brewers-focused edition of the Wisconsin Live Desk, although it's not like we haven't been Brewers-focused here so far in our initial couple hours. We have a lot to get to, including, pop it up one more time, a live look at Wrigley Field, where the Brewers will try to bust out the brooms and sweep the Chicago Cubs in just under 2 hours. 4:08 is the first pitch today for Game 3 of the NLDS. Ben Handelman, Kim Murphy, Lily Zhao, Ted Perry, all waiting for you on the other side of this commercial break. Thanks a lot for watching the Wisconsin Live Desk, and enjoy the game today.